Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the wrestling podcast, Getting Over. We've got Hell in the Cell coming down from, it wouldn't be coming down from hell, it'd be coming up from hell. Ignore me. Anyway, it's the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. If you're tuning in for the Ready to Grumble section, you're in luck. There is plenty to grumble about. We've got guest predictions. We've got lots of predictions. And wrestling news. So, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, Getting Over.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to introduce you to a fantabulous and incredible podcast called the Getting Over Podcast. And you can find this podcast on CookieCast, on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud. There's so many different ways to find it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll get a cobra to the face. It's that simple. You son of a gun.
This meeting is being recorded.
I love it. The lady always lets us know. Amazingly, never appears on the video, but it's fine because we're recording audio. So we'll always have it there.
We haven't used it for 14 months, but all of a sudden we realise, maybe everyone's a fucktard, so, you know.
And on that note, Stu, it's over to you.
Seamless link there, Mr. Cook. Thank you very much. What an introduction. I mean, so kind. Such kind words. Welcome along, everyone. Organic. It's that time once again. You may have guessed, there's a wrestling pay-per-view on the horizon, so Getting Over is back once again with a somewhat monthly dose of wrestling and WWE-related absolute gibberish for the most part.
Sorry, can we not use the word dose?
Well, topical. I'm trying to keep it topical, you know. You need more than 2 doses of this podcast, let's be fair. We've been going some time. And, if you didn't know that, go back, check out some old episodes, like, share and subscribe and all that good stuff whilst you're there. And speaking of going way back, you're going to have to cast your minds now way back to WrestleMania, because we're going to start, as we always do, with a predictions title. If you can cast your mind that far back, it's almost like somebody recorded this shit and put it on the internet, so you've got help there.
Was that the last pay-per-view?
No. However, that was the last scored pay-per-view per the podcast. So currently, your reigning defending pay-per-view predictions champion was Mr. Moore, with his somewhat dominant display at the time, if you remember, pulling out 10 out of a possible 14 points from the 2 shows of the weekend. And due to the scheduling of the pay-per-views, it is a title he has held for quite some time now. But let's get to the Backlash predictions results and see if anybody else can take that away from him.
It's like a Walter kind of longest reigning kind of thing. Like, no one's been there to wrestle you, bastard.
At this point, obviously, should give a mention to Mr. Mike Jowett, who was our guest predictor last time out. So thank you again to Mike for his predictions. Let's see how he fared. So in no particular order, which is obviously a very particular order, as we always do, Andy and Matt scored 4 out of 6.
No.
So instantly...
To take joint title? Sweet, okay.
Instantly, we have a new title holder, because you gentlemen were in joint last or third, whichever makes you feel better about the situation. I say it is worth the mention that the competition was pretty strong, because there was only 6 points available, and 4 to finish joint last is still pretty good going.
It is.
So, you'd think that's going to mean a draw then, right? Or does it mean that somebody's got a clean sweep? Well, again, special shout out to Mike, our guest predictor from last time. He pulled out 5 points out of a possible 6. Would it be enough to draw? Well, it was enough to draw with Paul, because Paul also got 5 points.
No.
That just leaves me.
No.
And for my first time ever, but for only the second time in the history of getting over on CookieCast, a clean sweep has occurred.
Ah, I've lost my reign.
6 out of 6. I mean, I'll be honest, when the results were coming in, I was as shocked as anyone that I actually managed to do that.
Confident as ever, Stu. Like it.
But yeah, I was very, very pleased, very, very pleased. So yeah, if you want to pop that in the post, I will quite happily. Or I suppose I could just take this one.
I was going to say, just reach behind you and pull that one down.
Yeah, I probably won't, because the entire wall will probably fall down at that point if I do that. So yeah, we will make our predictions for the next pay-per-view at the end of the show, as we always do, and we have a new guest predictor in place for this one, so stay tuned for that. So we'll go into the news now. So stuff that's happened since last time we were on, and there has been quite a lot. But for the 3rd month in a row, we are headed towards talking about some more releases, which is just bizarre. Like how many there've been and how long they've dragged this out. So names in this set of releases were probably the most shocking, I think, out of the group so far. Names included this time around Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, Ruby Riott, Lana, Buddy Murphy, and Matt's favourite out of the entire group, Santana Garrett. What do we think to the releases, and where do we think they're going to end up now?
Do you know what I think? Paul, just 30 seconds if you wouldn't mind.
Here he goes. It's time for some Ready to Grumble, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new to the podcast, you may not be aware, but we if something's annoyed us a little bit, we take 30 seconds, we hit that Ready to Grumble, and then it's never to be discussed again. When you're ready, Paul.
I don't know if I can stick to that rule.
As we're recording, obviously it's the middle of the European Championships, so I'm going to get texts left, right, and centre from all my mates who are watching the Italy-Switzerland game. So I'll try and keep those off the screen. And you ready, Andrew?
Oh, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Stop releasing talent from your company, you bunch of fucking muppets.
I mean, what are you going to do with the rest of the 20 seconds?
Do they even need the rest of the 20 seconds?
I mean, it's longer than 30 seconds at the end of the day, but what are they doing? Have they just got one giant shovel and they're just shoveling talent out the door? Does that have any relation to light cards?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because obviously we've just discussed the results predictions-wise, but one of the matches that we predicted last time out, Braun Strowman was in the main event for the WWE title and hasn't even made it to the next pay-per-view before he's been handed his papers. Like, what was going on? Like, there's been a lot of stuff thrown up about are they cutting people to cut the wage bill before a potential sale? Does anybody think there's any like depth in that?
I'd heard about a sale on the horizon.
I think we when we discussed it like on the group chat though, who's going to buy them? Because the Peacock deal's 5 years, and if only that the pen is barely dry on that. So no other content maker is going to buy them, because then you've got to buy Peacock out of that deal, which is it's not going to be just the 4 or 5 billion or whatever they paid them for. It's going to be more.
Whoa.
And you just kind of think like, I can't see there being a sale for 5 years. Unless it's a different, if it's an investment group or something like that, then fair enough. But I can't see, people are saying Disney. Why are Disney going to be like, all right, we'll own this company that one of our competitors competitors already owns the entire rights to all I read for to put on their thing that what are we going to do? Because you're just going to look ridiculous. You're going to look ridiculous for 4 years until then they can stick it on the ESPN kind of app or whatever they want, however they want to go about it. The sale thing to me, if they're gearing up for a sale in 4 or 5 years' time, they're doing a really good job of knocking off a serious amount of value from the company. Because, I've seen stuff today saying Vince understands that the product's stale. I honestly want to call bullshit on that, because there's no way. And if he does think the product's stale, let's face it, we know which way he's going to go, because we know what he does every time that he thinks the product is stale. He doesn't go and find new talent, or they do go and find new talent and chuck a shit ton of money at them and then release them in a few years. They go back to the old stuff. Yep. So Cena's already hinting that he's coming back to WWE.
Yep.
Broccoli Rob's back on the website. The product is turgid and boring at the moment, because I looked at when you sent I went to check the card, and I was like, we've seen incarnations of 2 or 3 of these matches already. Why on earth do people want to watch? People don't want to watch the same build-up. People don't want to watch the same matches. And you're releasing some of the most innovative and talented. We talked about Aleister Black. We were all big fans of Aleister Black, and he's gone from the company and never really had the opportunity to kind of really show the creative mind that he is.
That's because we need to see Goldberg again, Matt. We need to watch, and I will say this every time. I have utmost respect for people like Undertaker and stuff like that, but get Sting back on. Why don't we get Sting back on? Paul will be able to chime in on this. The way I was looking at it earlier, I was like, is this not getting like the Euros are on at the moment? So let's keep a small number of football players playing for teams for 30 years. Because they're not going to be getting injured at all. They're not going to be really old. They're not going to be a detriment to the sport in any way. Yes, we all love seeing John Cena, The Undertaker.
I'm just going to ask you one question. All 3 of you one question. So, does this finally mean that none of you actually care if The Rock ever comes back now?
That would be different. That would be a kind of...
it'll be different. It'll be so different.
I honestly don't see when they would be able to get The Rock to come back.
I don't want to see him back. I think the reason why I'm critical of WWE, and I'm the same. Obviously I've made jokes about all elderly wrestling as well, but I know you need legends. I know you need people that people recognise, but these people, like Andy said, it's when the Premier League first started, we were getting the players in the twilight of their career coming from payday.
When football first started, did you say?
As good as what we put him.
When football first started, yeah.
Yeah. When football first.
92, when football first started. Okay.
And we were kind of like, these guys, they're all right, but they're not quite as good as what we remember from 3-4 years ago. And the same kind of thing is happening with WWE. They're not. If you look at, and again, if you look at AEW, one of their most over characters is Darby Allin, and it's because he's a quirky dude. He makes his own videos. It's skate. He does a lot of skating stuff. But they just let him kind of develop an organic fan base. And yet, did it go over straight away? Perhaps not. But has it got over eventually? Yeah. And I think this thing with WWE is we want them to be awesome straight away, and we've got to fit them in with the WWE cookie cutters, and we've got to it's got to fit our way because our way's the best way. And you kind of like, it obviously isn't at the moment because your numbers are going down. And
like what Andy said with the football team reference as well, it is also valid in the respect of, yes, you don't want it to be full of too many old people because it'll be detrimental, and he's bang on with that. But also as well, thin it down to a couple, because them players then essentially are still special players, but you're building up your younger squad at the same time and getting a balanced team right across the books. Like
it works on the principle.
Too top heavy.
It works on the principle that there is nobody out there that's any good. That's what the WWE is saying. WWE is saying that there is nobody in existence that are any good. You're telling me that they couldn't take a collection of people who, in this day and age, and correct me, I don't want to speak out of turn, that who still want to be wrestlers, they couldn't take them, they couldn't give them a gimmick, they couldn't build them up, they couldn't train them up, and they couldn't launch them bigger than some of the big names. Get them in the ring, get them wrestling. Next thing, t-shirts start selling. Everybody loves something new, and they've got the money and the weight behind them to make anybody big.
But apparently they've got 300 wrestlers on the books.
Where?
Exactly, because you're seeing 20 wrestlers on Raw, 20 on SmackDown, 10.
Probably as many on NXT, I'd say. But they're actually they share the airtime, because quite often on NXT, if somebody's not on 1 week, they'll put a match graphic up saying this is happening next week, and that's the exact way to do it. So not only have they got the money and all the rest of it, they can do it for NXT and keep people invested and involved and keep it fresh. What the fuck is going on with that main roster now? Because it's like
it's not a big main roster, and when you you've got 5 hours of television to fill, and you've got the same 40 people doing it, and it's not interesting.
Let me ask you this: of all the people that are listed as being in this pay-per-view that's coming up, how many of them were in the last one?
I think the only person who probably wasn't, or 2 people who probably weren't, I don't think Alexa Bliss was in it, and I don't think Rey Mysterio was in it, because did they win the tag titles actually?
I was going to say Rey Mysterio and Dominic were for the last one.
Was Baszler in it? I don't think.
Yeah, I don't remember Baszler being involved.
That was so it is the 2 women from that match.
How much more interesting would it be if your answer was none of them? It's a completely different card, completely different matches with completely different wrestlers.
But then this, man, we're getting in deep on this, but like this throws back to the days of the brand split, and obviously they hammer the brand split now, like to the point where there's still a Raw set of people, there's still a SmackDown set of people. Fine, no problem with that. Did it work better then, in the olden days, if you like, of 2003, when they used to have separate Raw pay-per-views, and the following month was a SmackDown pay-per-view, and it was only like the big 4, as they get called, where it was like a super show where both the rosters came together. Does that work better than in your eyes?
Yeah, I'd like to see something like that, even if they were closer together. Even if they was just like a couple of weeks apart, but then like there was a month, so they had like one, then a couple of weeks later they had another one, and then the first one had like a 6-week break, and the second one had like a 4-week break, and then they ran it again.
Mm-hmm.
It would be something. And I know you're saying they used to do that, but it would be something different now.
Yeah.
But to me, the biggest thing is this: every time we sit down to do this, we're talking about people being released. But are we having conversations about, oh, did you see this guy? And, this new lady that's come on the scene that's absolutely tearing the place up. When was the last time you talked about somebody that was big and new?
Well, I can talk to you about somebody that's new and old, if you want. Because on the back of the releases last time, we also mentioned there was one particular Eva Marie returning to television. And this very week was the time that they chose to drop the sort of re-debut, if you like. For me personally, the bigger news wasn't her debut, but it was the fact that she didn't actually wrestle. And in her place was, if you only ever watch Raw, an unnamed wrestler that nobody has ever seen before. But if you watch NXT UK, which is partially where they keep all of those 300 wrestlers in the cupboard, it was Piper Niven. So Scotland's very own Viper, as was Piper Niven as she has been in NXT UK. So it does kind of like lead to the fact that she's probably going to get rebranded. But fantastic. It's a win-win that, because I don't think anybody's really bothered about Eva Marie wrestling. It would have been nice to see, and it still will be nice to see if she has actually developed or what have you. But the fact that they've got somebody instantly attached to her that can go, and to most eyes is brand new, that could be the example. But everybody's been burnt with like the stuff that we've just been talking about for the last 5 minutes or so, that she'll probably get called something like, Jane McDonald or something, because they'll play on the stereotype, and like she'll end up being sort of behind before she even starts. But we'll see. I hope not. Like, just massive congratulations to Piper Niven on the debut. Really chuffed, especially because it's like it's the old football theory, and it's like she's British now, but as soon as she starts losing, she'll be Scottish again. But yeah, nice to see somebody who we've seen locally as well in this country. So yeah, big congratulations to her. Just moving slightly backwards to another release, but not one that I'm not sure there'll be as much disappointment about. This is the sense that Adnan Virk, the what was the new lead announcer on Raw, has already left. It lasted 43 days in the job. And whilst the parting is said to be mutual, I kind of get the feeling it wasn't. And especially on the basis that he, from his mutual consent side of things, cited travel being a grind for him and his family. But he signed a contract at a time when they're in a stationary position and didn't ever have to go on the road with them. So he kind of knew exactly what was... Anyway, don't buy that at all. Go on, Matt, sorry.
I can't remember what, because is he an ESPN commentator, or is he
baseball?
He came from MLB Network, so he's
But I'm not sure if he's still doing it as well, so I'm not sure whether he's going.
Well, he is now.
He is there, but I think I'm not sure if he was doing a bit of to and fro and stuff like that. He just wasn't very good, but they're busy trying to replace him with somebody else that's not wrestling related, aren't they?
Well, he's not. They've already got him in place, and he's not from a wrestling background, but he is from a combat sports background. So, on the 31st of May episode of Raw, Virk was replaced as lead commentator by a guy called Jimmy Smith, possibly the most generic name in all of the names. That it's not a very star-spangled name for WWE. That is it. So Jimmy Smith, yeah, his background is in combat sports, mainly in Bellator and UFC. And he has also worked with WWE before as like a pre-show analyst in the past, so he kind of already had a foot in the door. But in the last sort of few weeks since he's been in, he has made a difference to me, as one of the people who still watches Raw weekly, and he's not calling the moves by the wrong names, which is a big improvement in of itself. We'll see how he goes. Give him a bit more time, but it is slightly better than it has been. So we'll see what turns up. I feel like we've got quite a bit still to get through in the news, so I'll just crack on. Matt very briefly touched on John Cena letting slip in an interview that his return is imminent. Didn't give any particular dates as to where or when, But in an interview with Chris Van Vliet on his podcast, he very much said how much he was looking forward to donning the denim shorts once again in the not too distant future. So something to that effect. But it's got to be SummerSlam, right?
I thought so.
First big pay-per-view.
I was going to say, is that not the next big story that we're going to cover, or that we'll come to?
I don't know really. I don't know what at this point in time. I don't think there's a place for him naturally in a story. I'm not sure what's going to happen. You'd have picked probably Wyatt, but Wyatt's been off TV as well. So the only thing keeping that on the back of them releases, the only thing keeping him in a job is the merchandise sales, surely. Because surely he's got to be a big puncher that's not really doing much on TV. But yeah, as I mentioned there as well, WWE have announced that they're returning to a touring schedule for the summer. They've announced a 25-city tour, including Money in the Bank pay-per-view, so Money in the Bank will be, in theory, before SummerSlam as well. And it runs from the 16th of July, starting with SmackDown in Houston, Texas. As far as I can see, all the way through to SummerSlam, which has been announced for Las Vegas in August. Happy that it's going to be back in front of fans again, or do we think it's a bit soon still?
I don't know if it's a bit the fact that it's a bit soon. It just seems a bit.
Seems funny saying that after we've been doing this over the Zooms for over a year now.
I don't know if it's for me. It just seems like it's a bit. Are they not announced that they were doing WrestleMania there at some point, or have I just made that up? Because they've announced like the next 3 or 4, aren't they?
Man, you put me on the spot now. One of them's
are they doing LA next year?
Mm-hmm.
Then Dallas.
Yep.
Or maybe just those 2. But I could have sworn that, I think Matt had even said that, you will be amazed if Mania's not at Las Vegas in the next, 3-4 years.
I know, but
I don't know whether they just sort of, for want of a better phrase, spunk in their wad a little early by going in with SummerSlam.
It'll still. I don't think it'll put them off if they've got 2 Manias in between. I don't think they'll be bothered. I mean,
Correct.
Jesus, they did it in New Orleans twice in 4 years, didn't they? So
yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, I think they've already said, haven't they, as well, that they're only operating at half capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So they're only going to sell.
A bit of a trial run.
Yeah,
Bit of a trial run. Fit some people in. You can do the kind of Raw and SmackDown. Or SmackDown and Raw at MGM or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
During the week and stuff like that. So.
Well, if anything, they might even even the people at the Raiders might think, a bit of a trial run for us actually using the stadium with people in it, because they didn't, even though they were there for the start of last season, they operated with no fans for any of the games, did they? So they're probably going to want to see how logistical it is to have people inside the building and stuff like that. Plus, there's I know that Andy's been before. I don't think either of you two have you been to Vegas. Either of you two?
No.
I mean, there's so many different not stadiums as such, but there's so many different venues. There's the T-Mobile Arena. There's I think it's the Thomas and Mack Centre. There's so many different venues they can go to do stuff. So if they wanted to do an access style thing that they do for WrestleMania, which inevitably they will do, they've got 2 or 3 different convention centres that can put that in, or arenas that can put that in. Like you said, they'll probably use either the T-Mobile Centre or the Thomas and Mack Centre for the Raw and SmackDown of that week. They might even try and factor in an NXT takeover, I'd imagine. And get that there, so you've got the full sort of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They usually oh no, because they're doing it on Saturday, aren't they? They're not even doing it on Saturday.
That's the other thing, sort of Saturday night. But then it would work sort of back to the last few years where it's been where SummerSlam's been in Brooklyn, and they've then had NXT takeover in Brooklyn. So if they can, there is a takeover due around that time. So I guess watch this space. We'll find out.
It would seem a bit strange, though. like for me, if they were to do SummerSlam, then have the NXT takeover, it's almost a bit like you sort of having your cup final and having a semi-final played after it.
If you've watched it, absolutely not.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. that is fair. That's a fair point. But obviously, like, would you look at it as a paid spectator? Would you look at it as sort of you've had your main course and then you go back and have a starter?
I reckon what they'd do is they'd knock off the weekly programming, because the NXT are coming around to having Great American Bash again, but that's going to just be on a Wednesday night on
Tuesday.
TV. So the chances are they might do the 2-night event like they have, for some takeover style stuff in the past, and have a bit of it on Wednesday night, which is on free TV in America. Do the next night, like they did. It was for WrestleMania, wasn't it? It was the takeover before WrestleMania, 2 nights. And maybe do it that way. So maybe have like takeover Wednesday, Thursday, SmackDown Friday, SummerSlam
Tuesday. It's till a Tuesday now.
Yeah, but I'm trying to space the week out for them, Paul. That particular week, whatever. Anyway, we shall move on. Last thing before we get to the predictions, and one of the names that came up in the previous podcast in the releases was one Mr. Samoa Joe. Everybody was pretty surprised about that. Literally called WrestleMania and then was binned off the week after, pretty much. Well, he returned to NXT this very week, but not in a wrestling role. Seems a bit of a strange one. Everybody seemed to think that Regal was going to leave as GM, and they did kind of paint the picture that way, so that's fair enough. He was offered the job of general manager on screen by Regal, and he declined it outright, but saying that he'd quite happily stick around to help William Regal get the respect that he deserves. And it started with a massive stare down with Karrion Kross, who's the current NXT champion. So yeah, like bringing Joe back to NXT in this kind of enforcer but non-wrestling role, good move. And how long do we think it's going to last before he actually then ends up fighting again? Because it's got to be coming, surely.
Very good.
He's not been cleared yet, has he?
Has he not?
He's not been medically cleared yet, apparently.
I'm surprised by that, because they're normally very sort of reluctant to let him do anything physical if they haven't got any sort of clearance. So whether it was like he's not cleared to be touched, but he can, for want of a better phrase, touch people.
Well, he quite handily choked out Adam Cole last night.
Yeah, I did see that. I mean, surely he's not. I imagine he's not content with his lot in ring. So you'd imagine he's got at least a handful of matches that he still wants to have within the company. Obviously, he's never had a run at a major world title in the WWE. He had the one title match with Lesnar, but other than that, he's never really sort of got to that level. I don't know whether he'd maybe sort of have that in his sights before he hangs up the boots and stuff. But I'll be amazed if he's not at least in a featured match before the end of the year.
I'm really hopeful that he'll get a good run in NXT again, because the card that they've got, the roster stat that they've got now, if they'd have all been there around the time when Joe was champion, you think about some of the matches you could get out of that. It's just like, yes please. Like, I know it's like proper like indie mark or whatever, but just yes, I'm just a million times yes.
You look at like what going back to NXT's done for Balor. You know, like he was kind of drifting along, kind of, you know, and you kind of think it's one of those moments where you think, oh, if he would have stayed on the main roster, was there any chance he might have got released? He might have been in this group and been released. Whereas he went back to NXT and kind of came up with the Prince kind of character and become, I mean, you dare say, better than what he was the first time he was in NXT. And you kind of think, right, well, where's he, you know, kind of, obviously he's had, you know, the matches with Karrion Kross now. You kind of think, well, where's he going to go next? Because it'd be quite interesting to see that character. I was like, why am I kidding myself? I was like, quite interested to see that character on the main roster, and then they'll fuck it up. So there's no point, is there? I was about to say the dumbest fucking thing I was ever going to say then, and it's just like, but yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure whether Joe looks kind of ring ready, kind of thing, whether he's going to get himself kind of ring shape, and that's what he's going to work on, and hopefully get the kind of clearance, the kind of Daniel Bryan edge clearance on the concussion thing. I hope he does, because
he's in the best possible place for it though now, because he's still got a presence now on weekly TV. He's working one night a week, very little travel, and he's based right next to the training centre. Like, what more? Like, if there's ever a setup to get him ready for a proper comeback, that is it, surely. So yeah, I'm very happy about that. So shall we move on to the predictions, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay, so check your calendars. It's absolutely not October, but here we are predicting the Hell in a Cell for 2021. So after a little bit of a reshuffle in the schedule, although they haven't released what they are for the rest of the year as yet, Hell in a Cell makes a move to the first half of the year. So if you're a stickler for tradition, you can pause it now if you like and come back in October and listen to us before you finally get watching the pay-per-view, but we'd be more than happy if you stick around, let's be fair. Hell in a Cell comes to us live this Sunday from the Thunderdome, still housed at the Youngling Center in Tampa, Florida. And as always, the match card we're about to discuss is correct at the time of recording. And so far, as Andy can attest to, WWE have offered up a measly 5 matches. It's not a diss to the quality of the wrestlers that are in those matches necessarily, but I would kind of expect more to probably be added in the coming days, either on SmackDown or maybe even via social media if they really can't be asked with the card. So, let's get to it. First match on the card is Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler. So over the last few weeks, Reginald, the sommelier who used to accompany Jax and Baszler as the tag team, had been the victim of a series of mysterious attacks. Baszler accused Bliss of being behind the attacks, essentially causing them the distraction that lost the women's tag team titles. But the fun really started with this rivalry in the last couple of weeks, where Shayna decided to take out her frustrations on Alexa's friend Lily. If you've not been watching, Lily is a doll that Alexa now claims tells her to do things, and apparently has been with her her whole life. There's been some really good photoshopping going on. Them boys have earned their money. But following the attack on the doll, there's been some theatrical elements in play as well. So creating like this eerie atmosphere wherever Shayna went. But it culminated with Baszler locking herself inside her own locker room. And then as she looked in the mirror, the doll was just behind her. So it was kind of... It was alright. I thought that was okay. But yeah, it's the first match between these two outright. So who's going to take the first victory in what inevitably, as we've discussed earlier, will probably be a series for the next 4 or 5 months? I should probably mention, again, our brand new guest predictor at this point. So he will be listening along. So Max, thank you very much for getting involved. I appreciate you listening and getting in touch to sort out the predictions. As he is the brand new predictor, maybe I should throw his predictions in first. He has gone with an Alexa Bliss victory, and he did specify by DQ. I'm not sure why he didn't specify why the DQ, but he has gone for an Alexa Bliss win. Does anybody else want to jump on the bandwagon of Miss Bliss?
Yeah.
So that's just everybody then, because me included. And
obviously the listeners of the podcast got a real treat there. Did you ask if anyone wanted to?
It was listener gold, that.
Like, no, I'll just leave that. There.
It's just another reason why, if you've not already, you should head over to YouTube and click the subscribe button. Get yourselves over there. So this is going to be. I would say, possibly the quickest set of predictions in any pay-per-view that we've discussed in 34 episodes of this podcast.
Is there a possibility that we're going to end up with all the same predictions for every single match?
Only on the basis that I've already seen Max's predictions, I would say no. But it will be very close.
Well, if we do, but if us four end up with the same set of predictions, we'll have to come up with like a tiebreaker for, say, whatever we think the main event is. We'll have to go like time of the match or something like that as the tiebreaker.
Okay. Right, so yeah, so just for those keeping score at home, everybody, probably not just the people talking about it on this podcast, but everybody that actually watches WWE will probably be picking Alexa Bliss. So, next match I have is the WWE Raw Women's title match, which is the champion Rhea Ripley defending against... Does anybody want to hazard a guess? Oh, that's right, Charlotte Flair in a title match. I feel very negative this time around. It's been a bit
jaded.
Been a little bit wearing this month, to be honest. So yeah, these two are continuing to go at it, following the triple threat at last month's pay-per-view at Backlash. Asuka's dropped out of the picture because she's taken a bit of a beating from both of them since that pay-per-view went down. The competition between Ripley and Flair created a beat the clock challenge as well in the midst against Nikki Cross, who's been thrown into the mix in recent weeks, and both women ended up losing the beat the clock challenge to Nikki Cross, although technically that is just the time running out and Nikki Cross not getting pinned. WWE logic strikes once again, everybody. But yeah, Nikki Cross is actually somebody who is nice to see back on TV as well whilst we're here, because she could be a bit of a breath of fresh air, and you'd probably have to think at this point in the way that they've positioned her that she is going to be the person that takes the reins between probably whatever happens this weekend and SummerSlam. You would have thought probably won't be in the match at SummerSlam, but will be asked to sort of keep the Raw Women's title ticking over in the meantime, I would expect. But yeah, Charlotte Flair challenges Rhea Ripley. Who wins?
Charlotte Flair.
It's not in Hell in a Cell, is it?
It's at Hell in a Cell, but not in Hell in a Cell. I mean,
Rhea Ripley, please.
They're missing a trick there, because then they could say for the first time ever there'd be 3 on one night. So Andy dives straight in there with Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, because I'm working on the principle if I just keep saying Charlotte Flair, I'm eventually going to be right. So
call the Randy method, I think, is the
Randall Keith
you might want
will
to
eventually win one.
Phrasing on that one.
In fact, put me Charlotte Flair down for the next few. Heard it here first, folks. But yeah, Charlotte Flair.
Man, Charlotte Flair spawns the Randy method. That sounds a little bit wrong on this podcast, but yeah, swiftly moving on. Matt, are you wanted to take the next one then?
Yeah, I'll go Rhea Ripley. I think they're probably going to keep it on until SummerSlam and then give it to Charlotte in front of people.
Okay. Coming out with all the euphemisms this evening. I'm also going to jump in on the Rhea Ripley prediction there, as is our guest predictor Max. He messaged me to say that he's picked Rhea because he thinks they need to invest in her and give her a good run, and she looked particularly good in fighting off Charlotte on Raw this past Monday. Almost doing for Charlotte what Nia Jax did for Becky Lynch once upon a time, leaving her with a bloody nose as she walked up the ramp. So it was looking a bit tasty. So yeah, that did actually make me a bit more interested in this match this coming weekend. So yeah, I agree with what Max has said on that one. So Paul, that leaves you to either make it 4-1 in favour of Rhea, or balance it slightly more at 3-2.
Rhea, please.
4-1 it is then. Okay. So the Getting Over team essentially very firmly behind Rhea Ripley on that one. Right, next match on the card is another women's match. Of the 5 matches that have been announced so far, 3 of them are women's singles matches. So, yeah.
Everybody said that WWE was sexist and not putting women over.
somewhere Cornette's looking at the card and he's pulling his hair out. He can't believe it. He can't believe there's more than one women's match.
When we get to the any other business bit, if I forget, remind us that we should very briefly touch on Triple H's press conference call about the women's situation before we head off into the ether of the internet. The women's title match for SmackDown at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view is the champion Bianca Belair defending against Bayley. Another match that's not inside the cell. The rivalry has basically consisted of these two just laughing at each other pretty much every week since WrestleMania. Very odd. Bayley laughed at Bianca, then Bianca laughed at Bayley, and then they both laughed at each other. I'm pretty sure they've even laughed at themselves at some point. If I'm being honest, and I mean, you might be picking up that I'm not feeling the most positive about all this at the moment. It's probably not their finest work so far. But they do have more than enough potential in the ring, so let's see what happens in the match at the weekend. So we'll hang on to that for now. The interesting point for me in this one is one key line that Bayley said. There is absolutely no sorry, it wasn't that one. It was that she would be the one laughing after Hell in a Cell, but wouldn't be the only one. What do we think Bayley has up her sleeve, and who leaves Hell in a Cell with the SmackDown Women's Championship?
Well,
okay, that took Paul all of a second.
I don't know. She'll try and pull out some sort of shady dealings or something, but it's time for me to crack out the old favourite phrase, isn't it? Because she ain't doing anything in this department for the next sort of like however many months. There's absolutely no way Bayley wins this match.
I mean, it's what the people tune in for, Paul. All the catchphrases. Got to get them in. Okay, well, Max has wholeheartedly disagreed with you. Max has picked Bayley, and when I said that I thought that there wouldn't be a matching set of picks, this was the match that I was referring to. Does anybody else want to join Max by picking Bayley? Or has Paul's tirade of abuse put you off?
No. I'd pick Bianca Belair. The only person who's going to be smiling is when Dan Housen gets his Ding Dong Hello Housen shirt that actually fits him.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Google it. It's worth it.
He's even got X-Pac texting Triple H to ask him where his t-shirt is.
Well, as a side note, this is probably more for us just being geeks about it. Did you see that RJ City was on the bump this week? So like they're starting to infiltrate slightly. So fingers crossed. Anyway, again, if you're not with us on the YouTubes, go and do it. You'll have seen everybody shake their head when I asked if we were joining Max with his Bayley pick, and clearly, Max, we think you definitely smoked something before you sent me that text message, because nobody has agreed with you on that one. 4-1 in favour of Bianca Belair retaining. Moving on to the fourth of the 5 matches on the card. I'm going to go with the Universal title match, and this is inside Hell in a Cell, and it's Roman Reigns defending against Rey Mysterio. Bit of a family affair this time in the first Hell in a Cell match that has come up on the predictions. The Samoan Dynasty versus the Lucha Legend. As mentioned by us previously on the podcast, we kind of alluded to the fact that we thought the Usos would end up challenging the Mysterios for the SmackDown Tag Team titles if and when they won it. That's exactly what happened at the pay-per-view last month with the Mysterios, and the Usos had a match against them on SmackDown in the meantime. The match wasn't really going to plan as far as Roman Reigns saw it, so he took it upon himself to interject himself into the match. Basically, beat the absolute living out of Dominic Mysterio, which is obviously Rey's son, drawing the ire of Rey, who then ended up challenging the head of the table to the match inside Hell in a Cell for the Universal title. Quite a simple story. Easy enough for him to get it in. Do we think that Rey has Ice Cube's chance in hell of unseating the champion at this point?
No.
Don't
I'm
do
going
it.
to tell you now.
Don't do it.
I'm going to tell you now.
Don't be that guy.
When I was writing out the match card, before I'd even had a text back from Max with his predictions, before we'd even arranged what time we were even sorting this out for the recording of this podcast tonight, as I typed the match card out, I just put Roman Reigns in every single box on this line. And Max didn't disappoint. Anybody else picking Rey Mysterio at all?
Paul, look at him.
Are you playing for points, Paul?
No, my was. This was going to be the point where I was going to say if I did have a particular grumble, it would be about this, but it's not really. It's. Oh no, yeah, you can do. You can stick us 30 seconds. Go on.
Right. I haven't got that functionality. Has anybody else got a timer? Because our time man's decided to go on the grumble ranting. I mean.
Okay. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Why would you use your so-called most dangerous match stipulation for a beginning of a feud in a pay-per-view? This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Just because it's at Hell in a Cell and it's for the title doesn't mean you have to put it inside the cell when they have no previous interactions with each other.
Very, very, very tightly to the 30 seconds. Can't disagree with anything you just said.
It just harks back to the lack of writing and storytelling that there is. It's just this kind of like...
Absolutely zero planning.
I just think it's shit. We need to get a legend into a match because people want to see, Rey Mysterio. Fuck it. We've got this tag thing, and him and Dominic have got the titles, and the Usos. Oh, well, they can wrestle each other, and now we need something for Roman Reigns to do. Oh, he can beat the living piss out of Dominic because that's what he seems to be good at the moment. Hark back to last year when Jesus Christ. The Seth Rollins beatdown was horrific.
Yeah.
And we chuck Ray into a match. He just like...
Oh man, can you imagine if they had more talent they could use? That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have this whole, let's just push these people together to do a thing.
Can we just take a minute to recognise just how dangerous, as Paul mentioned, this match potentially is, but even more so for a man who's had his retina reattached and put back in after the beatdown from Seth Rollins that Matt was just mentioning last year. At the horror show. Why didn't they call this the horror show? Because it could well be that just yet. Anyway.
I think it's called the product that at the moment.
Max did also say that he expects the feud to continue. Ultimately leading to where we mentioned before as well about the Usos will end up with the tag titles. Roman will end up with the keeping hold of the main title, but he thinks that eventually it's going to lead to Dominic and Rey against each other at some point as a result of that team falling to pieces. He's actually put down that he thinks it's going to be Rey that's going to turn on Dominic, but I would have it the other way entirely round for me personally. Sorry, Max, if you're listening, I've just crapped all over your storyline prediction. But Dominic's the bigger guy. Rey Mysterio's like he's like, the eternal babyface. He's never going to be a bad guy ever.
Yeah, but he's got the perfect excuse, hasn't he? He's got the perfect line because he taught Dominic everything he knows, but he didn't teach Dominic everything he knows.
Oh well. So yeah, Paul, get your CV together. Send it to WWE headquarters, Stamford, Connecticut. Creative director. There you go.
I think you'll find that all the CV they need is contained right here in these podcasts.
Oh well, as we mentioned, it was a short card. Here we are, already at the very last match that's currently listed. It is another Hell in a Cell match. It is another title match. This time around for the WWE title. Bobby Lashley, champion, defending against Drew McIntyre. Seems like another pay-per-view and another title match for Drew. Sticking with the theme of this podcast so far. it could be the last time, however. They've actually done some story. You'll enjoy this bit if you don't already know. Thanks to the negotiations of MVP, during the contract signing, it was added in that this will be the last time that Drew can challenge for the WWE title whilst Lashley is champion. Drew accepted that, but only on the basis that the match would take place inside Hell in a Cell. So, Paul, it's not the beginning of a feud. There is a reason to this.
Absolutely no problem with this one.
They worked in the story bit with the last shot of the title. So the only question remains, is the Big Scott going to become 3-time WWE champion this weekend? Or is the Almighty Era going to continue with, as my Seth would say, Bobbly Lashley? Good old Bobbly. Where are we going?
Bobbly for me, please.
Okay. You are joined on that prediction by Max.
And this man here. Right here.
And Andy.
Right here. Right here.
And
Okay. Me.
And was that you as well, Matt?
No. This is the one where I wrote down my things, and the first 4, I was like, yeah, Bliss, because if for whatever reason they want to keep on building this character, the kind of Rhea, Bianca, similar kind of reasons as to, like Max said, the Reigns kind of thing. I don't see that going anywhere else. But with this one, it's like, it's the kind of the rational kind of real life element of Drew's been grafting for what, like 18 months, kind of 20 months now. Are they going to give him a break, or is it going to be finally he gets the title back and then carries it through to SummerSlam or something like that? But I've gone Drew just to be different.
Playing for points, it may pay off.
It was written down on a piece of paper there. Not just.
I mean, it may pay off, or you may be the person I ask to do the tiebreak question for us next month. Who knows? So
I'll wait for the text.
So yeah, if you didn't gather from that, everybody apart from Matt is picking Bobby Lashley.
Bobbly.
Good old Bobbly. Max has elaborated somewhat, and he says he thinks that it's because somebody else is going to win the title off Bobby, and then Drew will win it off them. He has predicted possibly even Kofi. Don't think anybody would be angry about that. Also, the fact that
surely, if that is like you say, if that is what happens, then yeah, I don't think there'll be many people that'll be annoyed with it. The only way that's going to work, though, is if Drew turns heel.
just
It's
take
all
a
my
look.
Sorry, what?
At the moment,
Sorry,
I
what?
think we found the person who's going to be angry about it, and his name is Mr. Andy Cook.
If it was Big E, I'd be alright with that.
Nah, he'll be too busy winning the Universal title. Don't worry about it.
Max also said that the fact that Drew pinned Bobby clean on Raw before the pay-per-view also makes him a little bit nervous, as he actually wants Drew to win, as do I. As we all know, if you've ever listened to this podcast before, everybody knows that I want Drew to win. I just don't think he will. I think he'll be taking a backseat. My prediction, on the same line as what Max has said, is that actually it'll be Brock Lesnar that takes the title off him at SummerSlam.
Yes.
And then Drew will take in a bit of a reset of WrestleMania 36. But he's got to do it in front of a crowd, surely, against good old Brock.
Oh, I want Drew to win it in front of a crowd, or retain in front of a crowd. I'm not against.
Again, it's like, I think nobody on the podcast would be bothered if Brock ever just didn't come back, apart from Andy. And I think that nobody would be bothered if Kofi won the title on the podcast, apart from Andy. So
Because I've got vision.
I love it. This is the guy who was saying about using the new talent, and he's looking forward to Brock coming back.
Brock coming back to do 5 dates in the next 10 years.
For $10 million.
So let me just have a quick scan of. Right, me and Matt don't have Same. Me and Paul have the exact same predictions.
So I'm sorry for your loss.
Shots fired.
Both get thinking of questions.
So Max has a different set of predictions, Matt has a different set of predictions, and Andy with his somewhat possibly not ridiculous Charlotte Flair pick also has a different set of predictions. So we shall see who gets it right. Watch the pay-per-view this weekend. Listen to this first. Make sure you get it finished. Tick off the points. See if you can work it out. And if you can't be bothered to keep score, come back next month because you know we'll be doing it. So any other business? We did very briefly touch on the Triple H thing.
Well, actually, I set that up because I thought it was quite nice to see that obviously Mickey James' oldest is in NWA.
Correct.
With her husband and Billy Corgan.
Should specify that her husband is not Billy Corgan. Her husband is Nick Aldis. I mean, it might have been a shock if he ever gets to listen to the podcast. So.
And obviously, they've announced that they're going to do a female only pay-per-view, along with my favourite wrestling personality, Maria Kanellis Bennett, doing one with Ring of Honor as well. Well, yes, the aesthetics are weighed up by the annoying personality. But obviously, yeah, they've both announced that they're going to do female-only pay-per-views or female-only shows at some point. And then I'll tee up Stu to deliver us with the what is it? What's his role now within WWE? What's Mr. H's role in the WWE now?
Oh well, he's apparently there to not give two shits about being classed as sexist. Is the point I took from his press conference. So,
the officer of equal rights and.
Well, will he possibly get that? I mean, he did go in a little heavy-handed because, it was the question about because the thing about Mickey James organising this pay-per-view with the NWA wasn't just the fact it was going to be NWA. She was quite open in the sense of she wanted to work with female talents from every single company and wanted everybody to get on board with that. I mean, definitely sounds like something WWE will do. Never. Unless it benefits them. So the question during the NXT press conferences in the past week in the build-up to TakeOver was put to Triple H and said about, what's happening? Are you going to do it? Are you going to even do like another Evolution pay-per-view again? And I think the answer was something to the respect of, if I made a pay-per-view with all men's matches, you would tell me I was a sexist. I mean, just wind your neck in there, lad. Just think back about 20 years, and you were on some of those cards. So, yeah, I'm not sure really how much merit his response will garner. And you know what? To be honest, I'd be all right with them. And this isn't just me playing politics because this is a recorded piece of media, if you like. But genuinely, I would like it if they did Evolution. I enjoyed the first Evolution that they did. Everybody on that card absolutely busted their asses for the whole event. Go on, Paul's taking issue.
It was great. It wasn't an all women's pay-per-view. Michael Cole was doing the commentary.
Yeah, and they probably had the male referees, right?
Yeah. If you're gonna do it, you might as well go the whole hog. You had Renee. I can't remember what they called her now.
Renee Young.
That's the one. They had her at the time. She could have comfortably carried that as the lead commentator and brought someone like Lita in to do colour, or Beth Phoenix to do colour, or anyone else in the company to do colour that was a female. But they didn't. They just ran with Michael Cole because that's what they do. If you're going to do it, if you're going to say we're going to do an all-women's pay-per-view, literally deliver an all-women's pay-per-view, all-women referees, if anything, they should even go to the sort of extent of like having like all-female camera crew and stuff like that. I mean, there's definitely ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this kind of like it's this kind of pushback against people who are woke and people who are this kind of thing, and it's like you can't tell us what to do, and that's not being very fair. Like you said, there was tons of all male cards with the only women on the cards as a bit of kind of eye candy for people, and bikini contests and
bra and panties matches, wasn't it?
Bra and panties matches, and they've got a lot of work to do to undo what they did before, and it's like it's like doing things like saying you can't have a female football World Cup or something like that because it's got to be equal, it's got to be fair. You've got to push things up to kind of get them to their point where it is an equal standard. I still think, and you're perhaps not going to change some people's minds, but I think that at some point you've got to try and really push the fact that female wrestlers are wrestlers, and they can go better than some of the men. Some of the shit that's forced down our throats from the male side of the wrestling is way, the talent. There's
the Jackson
the talent that you want to see. That you want to see sometimes is not. You look at NXT. You want to see Io Shirai. You want to see kind of Ember Moon. You want to see some of those wrestlers as opposed to some of the people that are on the main roster. Some of the main roster female wrestlers, you want to see them go. And it's this kind of thing of female wrestlers can't wrestle male wrestlers. It's this kind of it's an entertainment product. And it's this kind of casting this kind of casting this weird kind of spot of there. Well, no, we are equal because we treat everybody the same. And you're like, yeah, but how often is it the women's match gets 10 minutes out of 3 hours? Or you kind of think, NXT is. I mean, I don't know whether he's thinking in his bubble of NXT. Is NXT more equal than the main roster? Probably. Kind of if you watch the show, like if you watched the last, I haven't watched this week's NXT, but you watched the one before. There was promos from The Way. There was promos from like Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. There was Io Shirai, kind of part of it all mixed in together. Plus there was female matches as well. It's very closed-minded.
NXT is more balanced, but that's because just like in terms of the presentation. But I think they genuinely have a more balanced roster.
Yeah,
like Raw and SmackDown are very male heavy, so really that's represented in the output. It's it's not. It's one of them. If they ever get around to addressing that balance, then maybe it'll follow the same suit as NXT. But and likewise, if NXT was top heavy on the male wrestlers, then would it become a tip more one way or that way? It's difficult. It's difficult to guess. But just back to the original thing, like appreciate what Mickie James is trying to do. Definitely get a few more eyes. It'll definitely get a few more eyes on NWA. Plus probably any independent companies that they end up working with as well. So essentially she's seen the gap in the market, she's absolutely gone for it, and why the hell not? So good on her. Yeah. Was there anything else anybody had for this time around?
No, not from me.
Considering that the predictions were short, we had an awful lot of news to discuss. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for sticking along. And thanks to everybody who's watching and listening to us right now. Very much appreciated. And obviously thank you to Max for his time with the predictions. As always, if he beats us, and he could, then prizes will be going his way. And might have a little word with him, because if predictions are tight, he might need to be on for a tiebreaker as well next time around. So we'll see how that goes. All right. So thank you as always, and enjoy the wrestling at the weekend. And Catch you next time. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Bye. So there you go. What do you think to that? More importantly, what are your predictions? Tell you what, while you're clicking the subscribe button and you're liking it and you're doing all of those things, why don't you drop us a little prediction? If you predict any of the matches correctly, we'll give you a shout out. How's that? Big thank you to our guest predictor, Max, and a big thank you to the Getting Over boys, as always, bringing you the wrestling news and the wrestling previews. So that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.